And thank everybody for tuning in. And I have Derek on the line. Derek, what are your thoughts on this game overall?
Well, I was really worried even just going into the game. I kind of, the more I dug into the research and everything with regard to how good Denver is at home, the more the more it made me think this was going to be a harder challenge than a lot of people I think wanted to give it credit for. And I mean, after the first couple drives, that was really how it played out. Dallas's defense couldn't get a hat on any of their men. So you found Denver should have been up 10-0 right off the bat. And if it's not for a missed field goal, that one probably gets even uglier.
Yes, indeed. And when you're looking at it from that aspect, I could just go ahead and tell you here, Derek, that D. Law did his deal out there on the field. He said he was going to promise that he can get 12 plus sacks, and he looks like he's in that range to get those amount of sacks this year. And then also Jordan Lewis, for the limited time that he played during this offseason, he looked pretty good out there. So I can pull out some positives. I thought that the kickers did well. Of course, 42-17 is always a bad smear to look on. But if you look at the game overall, I did post the game on the Facebook account. So those who need to go out and rewatch the game. Of course, it's a horrible game looking at just the raw score. And it's horrible to look at the fact that the coaching staff didn't establish anything. But it's one of those things where you can say, hey, it was a sophomore quarterback playing in an element that he never played in before. And the team just wasn't ready. And then it was delayed. So there's so many things, not trying to level excuses, but there's so many things that this team can bounce back from and look formidable next week.
Yeah, it wasn't a good game by any means for Dallas. I don't know if the problem was more so in their game plan per se, or if it just came down to pure execution. The impression I got early on was with regard to Zeke in particular, was he seemed to be a little bit disengaged, surprisingly. He ran into some trouble early on when they tried to establish the run, and it really just looked like he kind of shut down in that regard.
Yes, he did. But when you only run the ball 5 times in the first half, you're not going to get any level of production. And you have to, if you look at the Denver Broncos, they played to Dallas Cowboys played to their hand, and they played like Dallas Cowboys. They ran the ball, controlled the ball, limited their turnovers, and Trevor Simeons, I think that's his name, was just, although he had 4 touchdowns, he still passed for only 200 some odd yards. So with that all together, it's just that they was in their home, they was in their area, and if you was to pick this team to play anywhere else, then it may not have went that way, But I do know that Broncos fans will cry out to the high heavens and say, well, we dominated on every aspect of the game, and what are you talking about and stuff like that. But playing football is a game of momentum, and when you snatch that momentum away from a team that's young in the secondary and young out there, just period, on both ends of the ball, because Ezekiel Elliott don't have a lot of experience and Dak Prescott didn't have a lot of experience, and it shows. The only person that had experience out there was old man Witt. And he kind of showed up, but then he had also some drops too. But outside of that, that's how I look at it. The sky's not falling, the season is not over with. It's just that it's a learning process, and it is one of those things that we will have to just say, hey, move on from it, learn from your mistakes, and get ready for the Cardinals.
Yeah, and to clarify on what I was saying earlier about Zeke kind of shutting down, I was talking not just in the on-field production category. I was also talking about his effort. Today, Jason Garrett called out in both instances of Dak's interception, Zeke showed no effort on chasing down the runner. So in one of those instances, I know in particular he was only within about a few yards of the defender who had intercepted the pass and just kind of walked, jogged, whatever after him. Just didn't. He was just totally disengaged. That's more concerning to me than just him being shut down in general.
Well, yeah. Now, far as from an emotional aspect of it, I do know that he got the weight of his world. The weight of the world is on his shoulder, right? You're talking about
Mm-hmm.
an organization that revenues about $14 billion in revenue, going after him like he's the guy that committed murder. And it's one of those things that either, he gonna lose his battle basically, because you're talking about a $14 billion franchise, right? The NFL
Mm-hmm.
collectively, it's Ezekiel Elliott versus them, and he's not even established yet. So it's one of those things whereas he's emotionally not into the game, he's not enthused, he looks lackadaisy. His temperament is far and beyond different from what it was last year, and those are things that we're gonna have to take account for day in and day out if this thing keeps dragging its ugly face through the NFL with the quote unquote he's guilty before innocent type of situation with the Tiffany Thompson. So it's never going to be the same.
Yeah, exactly. And I kind of joked with you during the game, like, are we sure this can't count as one of those games he suspended? One of knock off one of those six and just take five? Because yeah, 9 carries for 8 yards. That's unheard of with the offensive line Dallas has, which leads me to believe it wasn't just a factor of opportunity, but perhaps something with regard. I don't know how much the Mile High Stadium and everything had an impact on the team, or how much of it was just kind of. I don't want to say looking past them, because I know Denver's a really good team. I don't think Dallas overlooked them. I just think that maybe they needed to be humbled a little bit. And this is really the first time in 19 Dak Prescott led games. I mean, not even really. This is matter of factly the first time under Dak Prescott they have been humbled like this. So hopefully you can take something from that, gives you a little extra motivation. It's one thing if you lose 23-20, but if someone comes into your place and just kicks your teeth in, it's a different scenario.
Yes, indeed. So if you look at it, everything collectively like that, yeah, I think you pulled up a stat, about the Denver Broncos being undefeated. Well, only lost one game since the '99
Yeah,
season, something like that.
I
Hmm.
believe it was dating back to 2000. In weeks 1 and 2 at Mile High, Denver is 19-1.
I would love to have that type of record on our end, but it's
Yeah.
something about. And now I can give you like the physical aspect of it, right? Since that time frame, I do know that a lot of people, the collective bargain, there's not a lot of practicing going on, right? And
Hmm.
it looks like those guys in that element, they are better in shape. They're more in shape than the opposition. That could play a major role. And then a lot of times, I've seen teams before go 6-0 and 5-0 the first half of the season and not even make the playoff. So
Vikings
it,
last year.
right, right. Remember, Vikings last year was the best team in the world, and the Cincinnati Bengals were the top rushing defense, and no one could stop them and all that stuff before the second half of the season. So this whatever you see out there for the first week or so, it's just never the truth of that team. Just like last year around this time, if you look at it from another perspective, people was crying for Ezekiel Elliott to be benched, because he had two fumbles against Redskins, and they were saying like,
Hmm.
"Hey, we need to start with Alfred Morris." So we do have in house a lot of fickle fans too as well. That the first tip of a raindrop, they're saying, "Okay, the sky's falling."
Yeah, and that's kind of one thing. I think I texted you during the game or right after the game, kind of expressing that same thought where, Cowboy fans, I understand last year was an amazing season. Yes, it ended earlier than we wanted, but 13-3, and I think all three losses were by a combined 18 points. To give that some clarity, we were entering the fourth quarter of the game last night, or yesterday afternoon, trailing by more than 20. So it it's one of those things where people overreact, and not just that they lost because they took one good thumping. Everyone assumes, well, this team's trash. Maybe they're not as good as we thought. It's week two. It's week two against a non-conference team and probably the best defense you're going to face all season. Like Denver, their one Achilles heel last year that gave me some hope for this week was that their run defense was not that strong last year. Through 2 weeks this year, they look as good as it gets in that department, and they weren't exactly weak in the other areas either.
Well, yes, and it's one of those things where they open up, right, like you said, at home for the first 2 weeks, right? They played the Chargers at home. So, how is this team going to be on the road? How is Trevor Siemian going to be when the weather change? It get cold in Denver, and he looks frail. He don't look like the biggest guy in the world. So those are other elements, that you have to put into place. So there are a lot of variables. So those are the things that I can point at. And Broncos fans would say, "Hey, we just won the Super Bowl. We beat Dallas." They run around with the shirt off, saying, "Hey, we took the heart and soul from the Cowboys." But at the same time, and also the Cowboys fans and those who root for our team is saying the sky's falling, fire Jason. Put Tony Romo back in the game. We shouldn't have drafted Zeke. He's fat. He's out of shape. We should have went with Jalen Ramsey. We should have did this and that. But at the same time, it's only second week. Last year, this same time, people was clamoring for Zeke to be benched. So at some point, we just have to just take the loss. I don't know, the last team that went 19-0 or undefeated in the year to win a Super Bowl was the Dolphins. So
72 Dolphins.
The 72 Dolphins. That's a long time ago. I think a third of the people that watching this show was not even alive. So that's just how it goes. It's the football, the NFL. We now I can say Nolan Carroll didn't look that great. We really miss Orlando Scandrick. Jeff Heath should have put in the longer spikes. He missed the tackle. They didn't. The ball didn't bounce their way when they created the fumble off the kickoff return. There's so many variables.
Right. Yeah, I think another big turning point in the game as well was DeMarcus Lawrence he makes a beautiful sack, forces Denver into a fairly deep field goal attempt, and then lines up over the center. It's a little bit of a weird rule, but it is a rule nevertheless, leveraging automatic first down for Denver, and instead they walk into the end zone. I think that was the turning point of the game, going from down 10-0, or no, that would have been 10-7, I think, maybe at that point. Going from that to back down 14-7 instantly, I think, deflated any kind of charge or anything in the Dallas defense because, well, even the offense, because before they're kind of getting their lunch money taken from them, and then they force the fumble at the 3, get the touchdown. Then, as you mentioned, force another fumble this time at this time on a kickoff, but can't recover it. I think they were still right there, and I think that was kind of the blow that turned the tide and the momentum, and they never got another opportunity.
Right, and football is a game of inches, right? And Jeff Heath caused the fumble, but didn't pick the ball up. He jumped the route when the ball was in the end zone, but he didn't catch the ball. So everybody clamoring, "Oh, you should get rid of Jeff Heath. Jeff Heath is this. Jeff Heath is that." Last I checked, we really didn't have any safeties on this Cowboys roster outside of Darren Woodson to be able to play jumping the ball and creating fumbles. Now, one can lament the fact that Church made turnovers last year, and Church was this and that. But give it time. It's only the second week. We're gonna have a way to show our prize. It's just one of those things that most running backs, it takes 3 to 4 weeks for them to get the running legs on them, and most defenses, before they just have that stable piece, takes about 3 to 4 weeks. Especially, and I mean especially, when you have a rookie secondary like we have.
Yeah, Jeff Heath in particular. I mean, you're talking about a guy with less than 5 career starts now. So, yeah, it's going to come. He's going to improve. It's going to be like the Atlanta defense, hopefully, for Dallas. If they can stay healthy, which thus far looks like a big if. I know Nolan Carroll's not a young buck, but, He still had him go out in concussion protocol. He left the game earlier as well with some kind of hamstring thing, it sounded like.
Mm-hmm.
Awuzie goes down, comes back, goes right back out with more hamstring agitation. He's starting to become a major concern with that. It sounds like something that could certainly linger throughout the season if they don't get it under control. I would honestly rather shut him down for a game or two to make sure he's 100% before he comes back again. But they're a young defense, and they've got a lot of talent in that young defense. So if they can just kind of keep it together, they should look like, to some extent, Atlanta last year, starting out very young, very inexperienced. The defense was rough until about the midway point of the season. The offense had to kind of carry the load until then. And then you saw, obviously, Atlanta go to and should have won the Super Bowl.
Yes, indeed. So it's very possible. And then if you look at it from this aspect too as well, when you get the David Irvins back, right, and the Demontre Moores, what that does collectively on that defensive line, on the defensive front, instead of the young Taco Charter getting 40 or maybe 35 snaps, now he gets 15 snaps. Now he's more fresher. Now he can just think, my responsibility is just to come in on third downs and attack the quarterback. Now it makes the opposition, the offensive line, to worry about David Irvin coming off the edge. And we saw what DeMarcus Lawrence was able to do. Just the one man by himself. Stephen Paya, of course, number 96, Malik Collins is pushing the pocket into the interior of the quarterback, making the quarterback move to the outskirts and allowing DeMarcus Lawrence to eat off the edge. But now you just need that other guy to complement the other side. Benson Mayo got there a few times, but like I said, it's one of those things. He's a rotational piece. And hopefully Jay Elliott, I'm not just trying to bring in everything from an optimistic aspect, but this defensive front, if they can just get off the ball, just outside of just because we only got Tank Lawrence going there, if we can get somebody else to get into the mix of things, you're talking about a whole different outcome of that game.
Yeah, absolutely. And you bring up a good point as well. I was talking about just the young players getting better. Yeah, Dallas has a number of players who will be coming back from various suspensions. So yeah, reinforcements are on the way. Dallas fans need to just kind of relax. We're 1-1. We were 1-1 after 2 games last year. It's a non-conference loss, let alone not within the division. So there's zero to worry about on that front. You're after 2 weeks. If the worst you're looking at after tonight is being tied for first at 1-1 within your division, that's not bad. Like, you'd rather be 2-0, but you weren't going to be 2-0 in yesterday's game.
Yes, indeed. And this is another thing that I just have a slight reservation on. And I'm just going to give it I'm going to give it 2 more weeks, basically. This wide receiving core. This wide receiving core, I do know that Dak Prescott is not putting the ball on the money, but the balls that are hitting the wide receiver's hands, they must come down with the ball.
Yeah, I kept hearing how great Bryce Butler was throughout camp. And, man, outside of one catch in week 1, one diving catch, I haven't seen it translate to the season. In fact, if anything, I'm seeing balls sail through his hands. And as you mentioned, Dak has not been his same accurate self yet this year. Last year, Dak excelled at the play-action pass, over 70% completion. This year, through 2 games, I think he's at 53% on that. So he's falling off a little bit. I don't put all of that on him. I do think that is something he will be able to settle in. It's almost like you want to throw out last game just because with 0 run game at all, people want to say like, oh, well, see, this is proof Dak can't just throw him into a game and win it for him. Well, I don't know how many quarterbacks other than maybe like an Aaron Rodgers or a Tom Brady can win you a game in which you have less than 30 rush yards and your star running back goes 9 carries for 8 yards. Like, you're just too one-dimensional at that point, and every defender gets to just pin back their ears and go after the quarterback.
No doubt. And we saw Aaron Rodgers yesterday against the Atlanta Falcons. So even if you have a superb all-star Super Bowl winning quarterback, you're going to have some rainfalls to come here and there. You're going to have some miseries. You're going to have some doubt. You're going to have all those things with your starting quarterback. So with that in mind too as well, Of course, the coaching staff does not get a free pass. I'm not saying to go and fire them, but what I'm saying is what I'm lamenting is that Scott Linehan must, and I mean a capital MUST, get creative. You got to understand that even though you're not getting run vertically up the field, and that's not the cup of tea that you used to. You got to understand, you got Dez Bryant. If you're not catching the ball, put him on a reverse. If not, then put Switz into the game so he can do a reverse. There's ways to get the team to go east and west and have them to think about it, especially if they playing man, then they have their backs turned to the ball. Let's do a little reverse sweep, or let's get creative. Put Dez Bryant in the backfield, or have a little play with Cole Beasley out there. Got Switzer. Do something of that ilk. Just don't just say, hey, let's fold up like weak tents. Let's try to force the ball to Dez. And that's the only thing. Put Dez, motion him, put him in a slot. Do something else. Just don't keep him onto the outside.
Right, and I think that also applies to the defense. I felt like Dallas ran out a very vanilla scheme. And, when you got a 7th-round pick like Trevor Siemian just picking you apart for 4 touchdowns, it's not a good look. He was just kind of sitting back there, could just take anything over the middle he wanted. And, it was play after play, Denver going 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 yards, and in many cases untouched. And then you saw Dallas kind of get a little bit reactive to that. In week 1, Dallas was phenomenal at wrapping up and completing a tackle. I think the Giants had after contact. So when the receiver would make a catch, he was brought down, I think, shy of 1 yard after the point of the catch. Phenomenal on that. Dallas could not do anything in that regard against Denver. Denver, everyone that they tried to bring down, I think the worst play, and granted this was a run, not a pass play, but C.J. Anderson just bulls over 3-4 Cowboys, including Jalen Smith, Jeff Heath. I didn't see Sean Lee in that particular tangle, but just blows right through the Dallas defense and for like a 20-yard gain. And that was just kind of like, okay, it's going to be one of those days.
Yes, indeed. Kind of reminded me of a game many years ago, the last game at the old Texas Stadium when they played against the Ravens. The McClain brothers, they were just running straight up the gut and just knocking over the players left and right. And the thing is, I was looking at some of the film and tape. Sean Lee didn't have his best game, not by any stretch of our imagination. Sean Lee, when you play in cover 2 or Tampa 2 or the schematics that Rod Marinelli plays, the weaknesses in deep seams in middle of the field, you can always, that's where the holes are going to be at in any form of cover 2. And Trevor Siemian exploited that. If you don't have your linebackers being able to cover it out in space and make necessary tackles and block up the passing lanes, you're going to have a long night. And that's where they got most of their first downs, deep and middle seams of the ball.
Yeah.
Nothing was on the edge. If you saw the game, it really was just very, 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 very limited to the edge. And then when they trying to pass one pass to the edge, my guy, Hip Pocket Lewis, was able to pick off one.
Yeah, that was one of the few kind of shining lights for Dallas. Not Crawford, Lawrence, and I would say the Jordan Lewis getting his interception. Those were the two small shining lights in the game for the Cowboys. I felt offensively, I didn't see anything encouraging. Dak, anytime you got Dak having to throw 50 times and Zeke's running 9 times, you're never going to win that game. I don't care if Dak is having the game of his life. It's going to be like the Denver game back in 2013, where Romo throws for 500 plus yards and 5 touchdowns, but then throws the interception at his own 20 with like a minute and a half left. That's what happens when you can't establish the run game and get it done that way.
Right. And for those who believe that Romo would have won this Sunday? Yesterday afternoon, just give it up. Dak Prescott was bent up like a pretzel. I mean, those hits that he was taking, regardless of what type of offensive line you have out there, it's just that he wouldn't have been able to be. He wouldn't have been able to survive that type of beatdown. And yes, Dak was able to elude and escape on certain plays, but it looks like he's still. Remember, all last year he played through pretty much most of the preseason games. So it looks like, somehow, some way, I'll just go back to this. It just looks like the team, the overall team, because every level of the team just looked like the starters now. Just didn't look like they was full tip-top shape. And, of course, I do know that the altitude probably played a little bit in that, too, as well.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's an ugly loss. Obviously, you would have rather put up a fight, I think, but I also think there's more you can take from this loss. There's more tape showing areas where you got sloppy. There's more, I think, personal motivation for each individual player. As you said, even someone like Sean Lee, who's, almost never does wrong in a game, it wasn't a great game for him either. So every player has something they can look at and a chance just to kind of reevaluate and reshuffle your focus and everything. And I think that'll go a long way.
Yes, indeed. And then on top of that, if you look at the flip side, we just right now we don't have a Chris Harris Jr. We don't have a
Talib.
Yeah, we don't have those guys on our team, and they flying out to the ball. We don't have a Stewart, a Darian Stewart, whoever that guy is, flying out, hitting the ball, going, just playing lights out. I'm talking about this guy was just everywhere. And then when the guy catches the ball, they was tackling. They did everything you would love for your team to do, and that's the Denver Broncos. That coach, that rookie coach, and I think he's been helped with some veteran coaches too as well. I saw the old coach that used to coach for the Chargers out there too as well. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was a good, well thought out, well laid plan. So it's just one of those things that, hey, we got hit with the buzzsaw. Now we just reevaluate the tape. Hopefully, Sean Lee is just not that type of Sean Lee anymore.
Right.
And we just get back to this W next week. If not, if we still look the same, then we need to say, hey, just 3 weeks in a row, the offense doesn't look like they deserve to be out there on the field, and we need to start reevaluating everything from A to Z.
Right. And, they're traveling to Arizona now, but they are going to miss David Johnson, one of the 3 best running backs in the league. So they're catching a break there. I have a better feeling, if it makes you feel better, I have a better feeling about the Arizona game than I had about the Denver game.
But Arizona still scares me because they got the guy that can match up on the outside. They got a guy that can match up with Dez Bryant. And they got that Honey Badger, too, as well, who's not afraid to take out my guy number 11. So there are still things out there. And I think they got some other kid that I think his name is the tip of my tongue. He's one of those rookies that was picked up. I think his name is Buda Baker. I think I think the Cardinals have him, too, as well, if he's playing. So the Ellington kid, I think he's the running back, right? The little fast guy.
He's the third down back. So they're playing Kerwin Williams. They re-signed Chris Johnson, and then Ellington is the third down back. Although he did get the most touches, I think, last week.
I remember Ellington eating us up one year. I think it was 2014, right? They had Brandon Wheaton down there.
Yep.
So it's not a cakewalk, man.
No, I'm not implying it's going to be a cakewalk. I'm just saying I have a better feeling about it. I feel like part of that will be just because of how the Denver game went. I think you're going to see, much like Washington was desperate and you could see throughout their entire team, they were hell-bent on winning yesterday. I think you're going to see something similar out of Dallas. They understand they can't afford to drop another one here. And I'm not even talking about with regard to like within the division. I just mean in general. I think they want to kind of silence the doubters and the haters in that regard.
That would work. I only have my reservations now on Zeke. If he still had that same stone, lethargic type of look on his face, then we may be up to the same old. Far as
Yeah.
the overall energy, energy can be contagious. You can have somebody that have a down day, and if they always in the office and they kind of bring down your energy, if that's happening all throughout this locker room, and it's contagious a little bit, because I was looking back at the last game when they played the San Francisco 49ers. Do you remember that last year when they was down?
Yes. Yeah. Week 2 last year.
Week 2 last year or something like that. And week 3, I think. And Zeke ran out to the field and he ran out to the defense and said, "Hey guys, y'all got to get this stuff together. You guys give me the ball back and we're gonna close it out." So
Right.
that type of Zeke we don't see anymore. And rightfully so. He got a lot. He got the weight of the world on his shoulder. He got a $14 billion revenue company, slandering his name, trying to do all type of stuff to sully and denigrate his image, and in no cases was ever charged or anything of that nature. And it's just crazy because anybody who don't even watch football, they know about the situation.
Yeah. Zeke is a big factor. I want to see Dallas make McFadden the number 2 back again. I still don't understand why Alfred Morris has been the backup the last 2 weeks. I think you need to keep, especially if you were worried about Zeke not being engaged mentally, then it makes sense to at least have a guy who does a lot of what he does, even if not on as explosive of a level.
Yeah, and I would love to see that. And you know what? I would love to do this too as well. Bill Belichick does it time in and time out and day in and day out. He would say, "Hey, okay, this week, last year he did it with the guy that's now playing for the Eagles. I forgot his name. Tip of my tongue. What's this guy name? The running back. He big
Oh,
back.
Blunt.
Yeah, LeGarrette Blount. One week, LeGarrette
Yep.
Blount will be starting running back. Then the next week, it'll be somebody else. It'll be the guy, the James White kid. I
Yep.
would love for us to go to that type of philosophy, just to steal a page out of the Patriot book and say, you know what, this week we want to prove that this is the best offensive line in the league, and we just want to come in and bruise them. So we're going to start Rod Smith this week, and have Keith Smith leading blocking. We're just going to show and lean our power and show them that we mean nothing but the dominations of the offensive line. I would love to see that, something different. Throw in a new wrinkle.
Yeah, it would be an interesting premise. I don't know how eager they are to do it, having invested the number 4 pick in Zeke. But who knows? If Zeke doesn't get his head right, then yeah, I'm all for it. But
That's all. I'm not saying. I know people are going to try to crucify me. I'm not saying to bench Zeke, but to at least have Rod Smith as the spell
backup,
back.
yeah,
The backup. Change
yeah,
change it up a little bit.
yeah, I agree. It should be a good game. Let's see. I think they play midday again on Sunday, so we'll definitely have to do another show before then, giving our predictions once we've had a chance to kind of look over all of the trends and kind of analyze the game and all that.
Do you think there will be any rain or lightning delay?
I don't know. I hope not. That really was a bummer. Nothing like waiting an hour just to watch your team's butt kicking continue.
Right. We will return to the next half of the ass whooping.
Yeah, yeah,
What
never fun.
What about this? Do they have a retractable roof?
Arizona, are they still in University of Phoenix Stadium or whatever it is?
I thought they may have a dome. I don't
I
know.
think it is a dome. I think so.
It's a dome. Okay.
Yeah.
So
So
yeah,
I think we're
we'll
good
be
there.
okay.
Yeah.
So I think that more and more I watch the Cowboys game. I think that we may just be a turf type of team with the speed and the element
Yeah.
that we have. I think Terrence Williams, because if I look at Terrence Williams, and I'm just going to talk about these little wide receivers that we have, Terrence Williams and Dez Bryant, to me, whenever I see them catching, they good at what they do, but it looks like they always falling.
Right. And that's supposed to be where someone like Ryan Switzer can help. He's supposed to be he's someone I haven't seen anything from yet, and I'm surprised. Everything we heard about him was that he was a lot like Beasley in that he had a knack for beating press coverage. Well, a lot of these cornerbacks you've encountered early on have excelled at press coverage. So I'm wondering why we haven't seen him brought in on the action a little bit. You mentioned Honey Badger, and his propensity to possibly take away Beasley this week. That's why you have someone like Switzer. He can take away one, but you can't take away both.
Yeah, it's a conundrum though. You have a Lyle Collins. He's good at what he does, and what I see a lot out there on the field is that I'm seeing that they chip a lot with the 84 tight end Hannah, and they chip a little bit, and they slide the Jason Witten over there to his side to help out too as well, and then he springs out for a pass. So I'm thinking, and just looking at the field, is that the only way that you can get Switz out there if you take Cole Beasley out the field, and that's never going to happen, or if you take old man Witt out the field, and that's never going to happen. Jason Witten won't allow that to happen. He's probably the leading touchdown receiver that we have on our team at this point. Sure hands, I know that for sure.
Yeah, probably. I don't know. I want to see us get a little more creative with the receiver packages as well. I think while Bryce Butler is not producing, I'd like to see Switz maybe spread out a little bit. I know he hasn't done a lot of that in training camp. He did have little bits of it. He did at UNC, North Carolina. So we'll see. I'm just in favor of shaking things up if the offense doesn't kind of wake up, because they were sluggish in week one. They got away with some sloppy play offensively. This week was abysmal, so they need to wake up starting this week.
No doubt. And then the other thing that you can throw into as well, since we just beating down our wide receivers, is the fact that could this be, if we don't see anything else improvement as far as Bryce Butler, could that be his glass ceiling? Is what we see.
Yeah.
So at this
Very
point,
well could be.
You might as well say, you know what? We like what you can do on the offseason. You're an offseason hero. You can do all these fantastic catching. And I know this is only game 2, but if he gives me 2 more games like these first 2 games, then that may be his glass ceiling. And then you may just go ahead and say, you know what? I cut my losses. I'm going to put 85 out there in his position and be done with it, At some point, the Cowboys offense coordinator and our Cowboys coaching staff have to make that decision. They can't just hold on and corral every player.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, well, I think that's about all the time I've got for this evening. We'll definitely do another one probably Thursday or something to preview the game, get a chance to talk a little bit more on what we've found on the Cardinals and kind of our gut feeling and make a prediction.
No doubt. And hey, man, it was a pleasure. Fantastic talking to you guys and talking to you too as well. That's all my time too as well. So, hey, salute.